Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In this video I want to show another of my rapid games, and we will especially have a look at transformation of pawn structures and endgame technique. But let's right dive into it. So this is a position from my game and black is in trouble here. Black is a pawn down, white has a double pawn, okay, but black is also very passive and the knight on d5 is hard to tolerate. So I decided to kind of set kind of a positional trap, and my opponent fell for it. I played the move rook d8. If you want to challenge yourself, you can pause the video here and try to think how you would react here. So my opponent should have played something like rook b6, keeping the strong knight. I never really want to take there because then I'm improving white's pawn structure and I will lose the b7 pawn in the end, and white has a huge advantage on the queen side. So yeah, probably I should have tried something like rook to d7 here, but black is definitely not happy. But instead, my opponent was quite tempted to take another pawn here with takes and knight f6, which is already a mistake. This knight is so annoying that white should not even think about trading it for the sake of just winning one pawn. Instead, white could have kept a lot of pressure, fixing the queen side and just establishing this knight there forever. I can never really take it, and it's also very hard to play around it. So knight f6 is really a mistake. I really got rid of this very annoying knight by offering some material. So this kind of passive positional sacrifice. I tempted my opponent to take this pawn to win a second pawn, but as a result I get rid of his knight. Okay, pawn takes. The position has changed tremendously in black's favor, but still white should of course not be worse. White is a pawn up and there are no issues. There is not much I can attack. For example, let's imagine white brings the rook here, the pawn here. What should I ever attack? White is still a pawn up. Nothing too great for black. But instead white took the pawn, and immediately the position becomes equal because now white is kind of uncoordinated and black will be the first to occupy the d file. And this is a major element in endgame, in endgames in general. Activate your pieces, especially your most valuable piece must be activated, and that's the rook. So white should have thought about this principle, activating his rook, but instead he kind of put his rook on the most awkward square where it needs the most time to ever get back. And of course I took the d file, and there is counterplay for black, even if we are 2 pawns down. Of course white is still not worse and could play something like rook f2, rook d1, and now probably here I have nothing better than to repeat, but with 2 pawns down probably that should not be a too big concern. So that's something white could have done, but instead white went rook f1, rook d8 of course, and now we see this pawn structure. White is having one extra pawn here and one extra pawn here, but it's really very hard to get the pawns into motion when the pieces don't play. So it probably also doesn't really feel like black is 2 pawns down because the white pawns are really well contained. So white should actually think about making a draw here despite being 2 pawns up. And that's probably his biggest mistake, that he at this moment did not yet realize that he is in trouble, practically speaking, because he was just 2 pawns up. So I think white should still just try to answer rook d2 with rook f2 and rook d1 with rook f1 and try to hold. However, he played rook c1. And now black can get a slight edge for the first time in the game. And if you want to challenge yourself again, you can think about it. So in the game, I play bishop b3, which is a strong move, because rook d2 it can be played afterwards anyway. White has no chance to prevent it. Also, I fixed the weakness on b2. And white is not able to really try to save all his pawns and to trade pawns and really push them. So bishop b3 is just more accurate than rook d2 immediately. White has no options of moving his b pawn. So after bishop b3, white went a5, which is okay. And now rook d2, the b pawn is about to fall because also rook b1 doesn't save it. For example, I think I was considering things like just attacking the rook and then take. Maybe also this is an option, going here and going here. Let me show you this. Maybe also I could consider this one. But as I think about it, there might be b4. So probably in the game I would rather have gone here, attacking the rook and then take the pawn immediately. Black is just one pawn down, and with such a structure and a lot of split pawns in white's position then, black is definitely pushing. So let's see what happened. He played c4, which is not great because now also the c4 pawn needs more protection. And white has another weakness. Of course, he had one idea, getting counterplay, getting active himself, but of course black can prevent this by playing bishop a4. This is a good move. The bishop will just stabilize everything from c6. The b7 will be protected. The e4 pawn will be under pressure, and really this is stopping everything. Always try to avoid the counterplay. Avoid the activity of your opponent in the endgame. Meanwhile, this king d7 would not be that great, I guess, because maybe there is some idea that he will activate the bishop, or yeah, at the moment it's not possible, but sometimes some ideas like rook coming via the d-file might also be interesting. So in general, I like this bishop a4 move, bring the bishop here. Also, the bishop had no real use on b3 any longer. So let's see what happened. He tried to activate his bishop, but I attacked the pawn, so the bishop cannot really activate because the pawn really needs some defense. Bishop d3. And here came another critical moment where I went quite wrong in the game because I played too fast and I really didn't see his idea of counterplay. So let's stop here for a while and think about what could be white's counterplay. Is there any chance white could activate any of those two pieces? And yes, there is. White would love to bring this bishop here, really restricting my bishop, and also bolstering this double pawn here. I can never really take them because I would improve his pawns a lot. Of course, this is not going to happen here, but after my careless rook a2, this was exactly what was happening, and it gave white a lot of chances to save the game. So we should prevent this idea at all costs, because if we don't allow this, white is basically stuck forever. He can never really move the bishop off this diagonal, and so he's basically passive for the rest of the game. So much better would have been just to play for activity rather than winning this pawn. And after, for example, bishop c2 and rook e2, okay, this is not leading too far, but if we do one waiting move, we see white really cannot move. For example, king h1, it drops material here, and a fork. h3, then we can go for the pawn, because after bishop d3 now the g3 would also be loose, and it's really very hard to make a move. The only one I can see right now is probably this one, but maybe we can just slowly improve the king or finally try to target this pawn. So there's really no hurry, but we should have avoided, basically I should have avoided the counterplay with bishop c4, bishop d5. Okay, in the game we will have a look at one more chance which I got later after rook a2. Here white was basically within the drawing margin, but I put some pressure and finally we got to this rook ending, which was holdable for white by a very simple transfer of the king, forcing some trades of pawns. For example, king e2. I can try to hide my king on g6. Okay, before I do something, I want to save my king. That c6 won't drop with a check. Then I try to win the g3 pawn. But the key problem is that white gets back with the king, and this should theoretically hold. Of course, black can try something in a game, but objectively it's a draw. However, he gave me winning chances here after he played g4, which was a big mistake, because the difference now is that after all those moves, the e4 pawn is attacked, and so the king cannot come back to f3 via e2, because white would lose a second pawn, and with that for sure the game. So white would need to play something like king d3, but then the king is just too far. Black can cut the king, and the h pawn will decide the game. So I didn't convert it in this clean way, but I did win the game actually. So what to keep in mind here from this game, I think a very important thing is, when you have a very good position, always consider your options. Do you really need to take another pawn, or is it maybe too greedy because you're giving too much activity to your opponent? My opponent really did not see any danger at this point, because he thought being 2 pawns up he cannot never be worse. But then suddenly the activity was crushing. Meanwhile, when he realized my counterplay at this point, there was basically not a great chance that black can ever be better in this position. So I hope that was instructive for you. If so, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.